All right, so explain the event of Kristallnacht. What caused this horrible action to take place? Who and what was targeted all throughout Germany on this terrible day in November of 1938? So again, as we're transitioning back here to Hitler, his rise to power is what we just talked about. We mentioned about the 1936 Olympic Games. We mentioned about the creation of the Autobahn, and actually how he's kind of got Germany revitalized in a way, economically speaking, and how he's pushing Germany to remilitarize. And then today I'm going to focus on his steps, his actions of really expansion, and how Germany's going to claim some land here throughout Europe and trying to tiptoe around the Allied powers, making sure that a war doesn't break out. So that's what we're going to mention today. Tomorrow, I'd like to finish it up, review a little bit, and then um, actually, if you have somewhat of a review game where you act like a foreign secretary for Hitler, what kind of steps you would take in order to try to avoid war ultimately and claim this land for Germany. So I'll give you guys some time. Think of the two names again of Kristallnacht, right? Think of that and why they were called these two names. Yeah. Um, for the ones that eventually Germany will get to. Yeah, so what I was gonna say is as we're talking today and what lands that he acquires, what Germany acquires, you can just color them in red. So it's kind of like a working document. Yeah, but I like this, email email what you have now, and then I can grade that assignment for you. But as we're moving through his foreign policy, you can kind of shade in what countries he eventually takes. Does that make sense? Okay, thanks. No way. How did this happen?
I'm thinking it's 100%.
It's hilarious. Actually, send that to me. I can get the other classes going on it. Someone else got 2 seconds. How did it happen now? That's hilarious. All right, so Kristallnacht. Two names again. So two names here for Kristallnacht. What we got? Luna, give me one. The Night of Broken Glass. Good. So when you think about, the anti-Semitic actions here, the Nazis against the Jews. Right? This is what it's known for, right? This is known for the businesses, the homes, the synagogues. Eventually here, obviously, the cemeteries, the graveyards that were all destroyed, right? Again, 200 Jews were killed during these events that happened in November of 1938, all throughout Germany, right? It wasn't just one city or one town, one village. No, it was all throughout the whole country. So the night of broken glass, yeah, that's what we know it as. Okay. And as we watch that video from the Holocaust Museum, has anybody ever been to the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C.? Yeah, area, yeah. Okay, I mean, it's one of those experiences that is really eerie. Obviously, it's a really good museum, but what you witness, what you see is really shocking, obviously. All right, good. What's the other name then? Jason, you said it earlier. Kristallnacht. And why did they do this? Why did the Nazis want to try to project this as something of a positive thing?
So that, so they continue from town around the alley, not go to war.
Yes, good, good job. Right, so we already mentioned about the what laws in 1935, which took citizenship away from Jews all throughout Germany. But again, in 1936, the Olympic Games, right? There's a lot of countries that were on the fence about this, right? Eli?
Nuremberg.
Yeah, it's the Nuremberg laws. Good. So this forbid any type of relationship, marriage between a Jew and a German citizen. Again, Hitler wanted to try to keep the Aryan race of bloodline pure and try to pick the outsiders out, right? And what the Nuremberg laws, what did the Jews have to place on their shirts, outside their homes, their buildings, their businesses, whatever it might be? Ben?
David Starr.
Yes, Star of David, good. So that, again, the Germans knew who the enemy was. So yeah, this was horrible, horrible actions. And these laws in 1935 were already kicking off what Hitler was looking to do, his main objective, his goal, okay? And to try to push out, as he would say, the undesirable people from Jersey. And then Kristallnacht, again, is what we see these horrible actions, these deadly actions. Now, what started Kristallnacht? What started this? As you remember, Audrina.
Jewish guy killed a lot.
Yeah, okay, so there's a Polish Jew in Paris, right? One of the Nazi officials were in Paris to try to make sure that a war doesn't break out between France and Germany. Okay, so yeah, countries talk with one another, and even Nazi Germany, right? At the time, they wanted to try to make sure we can ease things over. We'll mention today why there's so many discussions here between France and Germany. Okay, so there's one reason we'll mention today with the occupation of the Rhineland. Like Germany's going to take it back, and obviously France is going to be too happy about it. But anyway, there was an assassination of a Nazi official in Paris. And this is what Hitler needed to really just take the mask down, right? To show the world exactly what he was all about and what kind of actions he has against this, the Jews and other minority groups throughout Germany. All right, so again, we mentioned about how they attacked synagogues. What are synagogues? First synagogues, yes, good job, right? They burned down to the ground, over 200 of them destroyed. And you gotta imagine, okay, it's not like they had social media back then, right? People, when they wanted to meet and get together with friends, community members, especially, Jewish ethnicity and religion, they go to the synagogues, right? If that's taken away, can they meet anywhere? Do they feel welcome within these towns or villages? No, they don't, right? We mentioned too about cemeteries. Okay, grave sites, tombstones. Why would the Nazis, the Hitler Youth, even German citizens partake in the destruction of this?
So that way the Jews don't have history like in that town.
That's right, right? So when you think about your ancestry, you think about your family lineage back to these towns and these areas from Germany, right? If this is destroyed, if that's not there, well, you have no linkage to it. So why would you stay? Whole goal is to try to drive it out. All right, good. Anything else here we can add? Oh, real quick, the fire department, as these buildings were being put ablaze, as they were being destroyed, right? The fire department, police officers, as many you can imagine, Jewish people running this, ask for help, plead for help. Well, they just kind of stood idle, right? They realized that they tried to put out the fires or the flames of their homes or their buildings, well, they'd be seen as enemies themselves. So when you think about the fear tactics and propaganda that was infused, indoctrination within the German people, and even just law enforcement in Germany, they were told not to do anything, just to let them roar, let them be destroyed. Now, if it starts getting over to a German home or a German business, then the flames can be put out. But overall, this was directed, this was an initiative passed from the top down, right, to make sure that these attacks were carried out. Okay, from the head officials, from Hitler himself, down to the local governments, the local areas throughout these towns, villages, and cities. Right, this was a calculated effort. All right, is there any questions here? So I wanted to make sure I started here, and today we're going to talk about Hitler's foreign expansion. Okay, so we're back to Germany, we're back to Hitler. Okay, and we're going to mention about how this war starts. So here are your terms, and once you're done with these terms, you're done. So I just posted your vocab assignment. And when you're finished, you can turn those in. I'll give you guys points for them. I have it due for Friday, but obviously, when you're finished, you can just get it over and done with. All right, so we got Lebensraum, appeasement, Munich conference, Neville Chamberlain, and then the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, or known as the German-Soviet Non-Aggression Pact. All right, so with these terms today, we're going to focus on Hitler's expansion, right? How Germany's going to look to claim some of this land that they believe, that Hitler believes, was unwrongfully taken from them at the end of World War One. Bless you. All right, guys. So Lebensraum. Make sure you guys write this down. This is Hitler's policy of expansion. So it just means living space. He wants to try to gain living space and breathing room for the German people. All right, Blake, you got that? You sure? You sure? Okay. All right, so he wants to try to gain living space, breathing room for the German Aryan race, as he describes it. Right? In Europe, you can imagine, it's pretty small, right? All these countries here are jam-packed close to one another. The only way to try to access any more resources and raw materials is to expand. And after the Treaty of Versailles, could Germany do that? Were they allowed to do that? No, they got their territories taken away, they got their borders reduced, and were they even really to have a military? No. Well, do you think Hitler's gonna follow any of that? No, he's not. All right, appeasement. So appeasement just means that you're granting concessions to someone so that you don't, let's say, start a fight with someone. All right. In other words, you're like, hey, I can give you this, right? I can maybe be a lenient here in order that, in order so we don't see any type of violence or conflict. Right. That's exactly what the Allied powers are going to do with Hitler. Right. They don't want a war. No one wants a war, right? So, in other words, France and Great Britain say, hey, if you want this land, you want to try to take this, this territory that are close to your borders, go ahead. But after that, you need to stop, right? We don't want warfare here. So, in other words, the Allied powers are just allowing Hitler to expand because they wanted to prevent a war. They thought if you just give a little bit, you'll stop. But we all know that doesn't happen. So it kind of goes back to that old expression, give it an inch and they take a mile. That's exactly what Hitler and the Nazis are going to do. All right, the Munich conference. This was a pact. If you want to put pact here, that's fine too, like PACT. So the Munich pact or Munich conference. This was a meeting between Chamberlain, which is the prime minister of Great Britain. So there you go. There's the next one, right? Hitler, Mussolini, and they wanted to talk about how they needed to make sure that Hitler stops expanding. Right? In this pact, in this non-aggression agreement, they're going to give up part of Czechoslovakia to Germany, and then Hitler needs to stop expanding. Well, Hitler signs on the dotted line. He agrees to it. He says, yep, I'm fine. After I get this part of Czechoslovakia, I'll stop expanding. And we all know that didn't happen. But Neville Chamberlain goes back, right? And he gets somewhat of a hero's welcome in Great Britain. He's like, hey, I got Hitler's signature. As he's expanding, well, now he's stopping. He signed it on the dotted line. He said that we're gonna agree that we're not gonna have any war in our future. Well, you can imagine that didn't happen, right? So, in other words, Chamberlain kind of looked like a fool in a way as he came back to Great Britain, having Hitler's signature. If Hitler's gonna sign on the dotted line, does it really mean anything to any type of treaty or agreement? No, right? Every treaty that he stumbled across or any peace negotiation, he is ripping up. All right, Neville Chamberlain, I just mentioned about it. He's the Prime Minister of Great Britain during the start of World War II. He's not going to be there long. We'll mention about it. Winston Churchill, which you maybe heard of that name before. He will step in for Great Britain through the rest of the conflict. All right, finally, Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, which is a German-Soviet non-aggression pact. So it says it in the name. As Hitler's expanding, he realizes that if he wants to take Poland, well, he knows that Great Britain and France are going to start war with them. So he decides to reach out with a weird friend, right? A weird friend. I know, it sounds crazy, but Hitler reaches out to Stalin. He says, listen, we both want part of Poland. It was taken away from us at the end of World War One. Okay. And well, we can have an agreement that we can split it right in half. And Hitler has an idea here with this pact with the Soviet Union. He thinks, well, I'm gonna get land at it, great. I don't have to worry about a two-front war if this cracks, right? If this happens. And at the same time, France and Great Britain, it would be kind of suicide to attack Germany if they're sided with Russia, the Soviet Union. So, in other words, he can get land without a war breaking out. That's what he thinks. Well, we all know that doesn't happen. Okay, as he attacks Poland, Great Britain, and France, they do jump into the war. And Hitler doesn't really think that would happen, but it does. It sounds weird, I know, but you got a communist leader dealing with a fascist leader. Does that mix? No, it does not. Hitler talked about it from the very beginning. Who does he blame for all the issues in Germany? Well, the Jews, yeah. Other minority groups, sure. But who else? Chase.
Communism.
Yes, communism, Bolshevism, right? He sees it as a leech. He sees it as a problem. And ultimately, we'll mention the Soviet Union, Russia is going to be his main target. He wants that. He sees this as the ultimate means of Lebensraum, the living space for the German people. And yeah, he's going to look at that pact and you got it, rip it up, just like he did with everything else. All right, so real quick, these steps, well, they happen pretty darn quick, very quick. All right, appeasement for Hitler. Like I just mentioned, appeasement just means that you're granting concessions in order to make sure that, well, you don't start a fight with someone. Okay, a lot of times, well, some people might just come back and just drop off the nice little smartboard pen when I'm not around or I'm not looking. Yeah, because they think, oh, if I decided to give this back to him when he's here, he might really just slight me down, who knows? But anyway, I'm sure you guys can maybe think of an example personally that you might have had where you're trying to prevent someone from freaking out, preventing a fight, a conflict. And even though you might not see eye to eye with them, you give them something in order to try to appease them. That's what appeasement means. So maybe with an older brother and older sister, right? Or maybe younger brother and younger sister, who knows? They start crying because they got a little too rough while you were playing. So you decide, oh, I don't really like it. I don't really like them right now. They're trying to get me in trouble. But I'll give them the video game controller in order to try to appease them, try to calm them down. Because, well, if they get angry enough, they might be coming at me swinging. Does that make sense? All right. So this is exactly what the Allied powers do with Hitler. He's not following the Treaty of Versailles. We've seen this from the very beginning. He literally talked about how, right, this treaty is not going to be utilized with the new Germany as it's taken over. I know I mentioned about it. He uses that as toilet paper. He does. And he's not going to follow the lines of the treaty. Ever since he took over as dictator, he's been militarized. He's been looking to take the land that was, he believes, wrongfully taken away from Germany at the end of World War One. Right? So, yeah, the Allied powers are in a very tough spot. Okay, they kind of got to coddle them a little bit, right? They got to treat them with kid gloves in order to make sure a war doesn't break out. Everybody realized how bad the First World War was. For Hitler, though, right, he fought in the trenches. He is still upset about how that ended for Germany in World War One. So in the back of his mind, the whole time, he wants this war to happen. He wants to try to prove that Germany is this ideal world power and that there's going to be a new turning of tide in Europe and the world. All right, so anyway, why did the Allies grant appeasement? Well, believe it or not, I know it sounds wild too, and this is just another perspective by some historians. Great Britain and France, even the United States, think about this. They see Germany, they see Italy, these fascist dictatorships, well, not being as bad as communism, right? Right, Jason? Yeah. So they say, hey, Hitler, Mussolini, they're kind of keeping communism over in Eastern Europe, right? So let's face it, Italy and Germany, where are they in Europe? Right smack dab in the middle, aren't they? Yeah. Can communism spread any further from there? No, they're not allowing it happening into their borders. Okay, they have strict authoritarian guides and measures to prevent any of these radical ideas from coming in, especially Bolshevism, especially communism. So in other words, they're okay with it, right? They see actually the Soviet Union being a bigger threat than, well, Germany and Italy. So in other words, it's kind of like checking it, right? They're making sure that communism doesn't spread. And they like that. It's right there in Europe. Again, I know it sounds wild. They're not very friendly with Germany or Italy. I don't get you wrong there, but to stop the spread of communism, what better measure than right there? All right, no one imagined another world war. Again, no one thought this would ever happen. Great Britain and France are doing everything they can to prevent it. Hitler, though, has a different plan. And again, by 1935, with the Nuremberg laws, we start to see Hitler's anti-Semitic plan, right? His plan for trying to weed out, as he describes, Germany from the undesirable people. But warfare, maybe not. All right, so moving on here. By 1936, well, he's looking to try to gobble up land, right? Hitler's war machine is growing and growing and growing. England and France, not so much. They follow the Treaty of Versailles, where they got to demilitarize. They follow Wilson's 14 points, where they got to demilitarize. But Germany is not. All right, real quick. Here's Alsace-Lorraine. You guys remember talking about that territory? Well, now here it's known as the Rhineland because it's focused on the Rhine River. I know I talked about that before. Anyway, this was like a buffer zone between France and Germany. And actually, right after World War I, France kind of took that land. But as tensions are rising here with Hitler's rise to power, France is going through a lot of their own internal disputes. So Hitler decides, well, let's test them out. Let's see what they actually do if I try to militarize this land. So he sends over 20,000 troops to militarize the Rhineland. And guess what? France does nothing. They're like, you want to avoid war, full peace, I'm sure, here, take it. But that's it, that's it. Again, they're going through their own political issues too. So as he militarizes the Rhineland, think of it, right? It's like a person sticking their toe in the water, seeing if it's cold enough, right? Maybe it's too cold, or you know what? This is fine. I'm jumping in, right? This is that first step, and again, the Allied powers do nothing. All right, next thing. So in spring of 1938, they called the Anschluss, which just means like an agreement, a unification. Where was Hitler from again? Where is he from, Ben? Austria. Austria, good job. And, well, the Austrian people, did they have a strong leader, so to speak, like Hitler, to get him out of this depression after World War I? No, they didn't. So have they been doing better? Have they been struggling after World War I? They've been struggling. And they see Germany rising to power. They see people having jobs, money flowing like never before. And, well, if you're an Austrian right next to the border, you speak a similar language, right? You have a similar culture. Let's face it. Hitler is from Austria, and now he's the dictator of Germany. So the Anschluss, just make sure you guys know, I know it's hard to pronounce, but this is the annexation of Austria and Germany. So in other words, Hitler says, hey, you want to be a part of it? Yeah, you want our military power? Austria's like, sure, yeah, we don't have one right now after World War I. Right, you want our jobs and our economic policies. Yup. All right. So Hitler marches his troops into Austria, and it's like this massive parade. Massive parade. The people of Austria are cheering, and they accept him. They just decide, hey, our borders are your borders now. And Austria just gets annexed into Germany. And it happens just with no firing, no conflict, no shots being rung out. And obviously Hitler's very proud of that. He's from Austria. This is what he wanted. All right, the next thing, Sudetenland. I'm going to run out of time here, but real quick, the Sudetenland is the western portion of Czechoslovakia, right? And guess what? There's German-speaking people there. Remember, after World War I, a lot of these countries in Eastern Europe start to form that were once Germany, right? Yes. So there's German-speaking people there. Mixed in, but listen to this, with Slavic-speaking people, meaning like Russians. Do Russians and Germans get along? No. So Hitler appealed to the Allied powers and said, hey, our German-speaking people in this Sudetenland, and that's right next door in Czechoslovakia, are being mistreated. They're getting bullied around. They're in a minority there. Guess what? We're done with it. How about you just give the land to us? And this is where we see France and Great Britain say, uh-oh, he's really trying to gobble up land more and more now. Okay? And, well, I guess he has a point. Obviously, Hitler hyped those points, right? It was obviously something that he just tried to exaggerate. But the Sudetenland will just be given to them, right? The western part of Czechoslovakia will be given to them. Again, we'll mention more about it tomorrow. All right, guys. See you later. Take care. Again, vocab, if you're done, turn it in. You're done, turn it in. Hey, the map, make sure you email it to me. All right. Make sure you email it to me.